Hi, I'm recording. What are you doing?
I didn't. Grandma just set me down because I wanted a game to play with you.
Oh, okay. I will be up in 2 minutes and then I'll come get a game. Okay? Take Emma with you. Go. Among this stack of books lives one book that has made history that has not happened in 2 years. I DNF'd a book. Hello, Bookworm family. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Danny. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell because sometimes I post bonus footage like I might do this week. Hint, hint. And you're definitely going to want to be notified for that. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please be sure to do that. It is at @the_dancing_bookworm. On there, I post full reviews and more bookish content, so you're going to want to make sure to follow me there. So it is time for February's wrap-up. I can't believe February is already done. I am so happy with the amount of books that I read, which it doesn't seem like a lot because I've only read 7 this month, which was the exact amount that I needed for my February TBR raffle. However, the books that I read were kind of chunkers. Usually within the month, I will squeeze in like a 100-page book or a 150-page book just so I can have an extra number. But I was really down to the wire with some of these reads. It is the last day of February and I really pushed it. So I just finished the last book today and I was getting a little nervous that I might have to pick another one out of my TBR raffle for the month of March, but I did not. I finished them, so I am super proud of myself. However, within the stack of books, there is a book that I DNF'd. If you don't know what DNF means, it means did not finish. I did not finish a book. This is the first time that has happened in 2 years. Really, since I've been a part of BookTube. I have been an avid reader for about 3 years now, but the first year I definitely DNF'd a lot of books, and the last 2 years I have refused to DNF books, and I cannot believe, you guys, that I did. I am so surprised at myself, but really it was a book that I just could not make it through, so we will discuss that when I get to that book. However, the stats that I'm about to read you do not reflect that book because I do not count it towards my stats or my reading goal for the year because I only read 25 pages of it and then had to give up on it because I just couldn't do it. So let's just get into the stats of the month. So in the month of February, I read 7 books. That gave me a minimum page number of 222 pages and a maximum page number of 433 pages, which applied to 2 books, which were You and Breakout. The genres that I read were 1 Christian book, 2 realistic fiction book, 2 sci-fi fantasy books, 1 nonfiction memoir, and 1 other, which was a thriller. Reading level, I read 1 middle grade, 3 young adult, and 3 adult books. For format, I read 3 paperback, 3 hardcover, and 1 audiobook. And for star ratings, I had no 1-star books. I had 1 2-star books, 2 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 1 5-star book for the month. Overall, my monthly reading was pretty good. There was kind of a variety of emotions throughout. There wasn't really anything like that was like super, super upsetting or super, super aggravating. It was definitely like an up and down and a lot of split emotions amongst the books. So the first book that I read for the month of February was You by Carolyn Katniss. If you guys don't know what this book is about, it is about Beck, who walks into a bookstore where she meets Joe, the bookshop manager, and he becomes absolutely obsessed with her to the point where he begins stalking her. This book is written from Joe's point of view, and it's written in second-person format, so instead of saying like she washed her hair, it says you washed your hair. So it makes you feel like you are the one being stalked. Basically what happens is Joe tries to get Beck to fall in love with him by any means necessary, whether that means committing murder or not. So this book definitely has a thriller aspect. I read this for my out of my comfort zone prompt for my TBR raffle because I don't really like books that is based off of something that could actually happen. That's scary because I just don't want to think about that kind of stuff. But I really liked this book. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was creepy in all the right ways. I did watch the first season of the Netflix series, and I have to say it's pretty spot on minus a couple minor changes and the addition of a couple characters that I actually like the addition of the couple characters. However, I thought this book was really good. it is just so creepy, you guys. Like, I mean, the things that he saves of her, the things that he does to just manipulate her just a little bit to make her think that she's the crazy one and not him, it's intense. And the fact that stuff like this really happens makes it even more mind-blowing to me. But I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very entertaining, and I went out and bought the sequel, which is Hidden Bodies, that I'm hoping to read sometime in April, because I will not be able to fit it in March after looking at my TBR, but I'm definitely hoping to read it sometime in April. So the second book that I read this month was Choose Your Own Autobiography by Neil Patrick Harris. If you guys don't know who Neil Patrick Harris is, he is an American comedian and actor. He's on Broadway. He's been in TV shows like How I Met Your Mother, and he's been in movies. He started off as a child actor, and this book is kind of a look into his life, an autobiography into his life. But instead of doing it in the standard way of like starting at birth and going through all of his adulthood, basically, you get to pick what paths you want to learn about. So I read through this book twice because it was a pretty quick read. The first time I took the path to learn more about his life as a gay man, because I used this book as my LGBTQIA+ prompt for my TBR raffle. But I also went through again and read about his life as a child actor when he did the show Doogie Howser. I think that's how you say it, Doogie Howser. And I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it told me a lot about Neil Patrick Harris, but I still wanted to know more about his life. And basically, you would have to read this book through like 5 or 6 times to get all the information in the proper order, because it is choose your own adventure type writing. But I also thought it was very clever and very true to his personality. He is definitely a one-of-a-kind person, and I enjoyed it a lot. It made me laugh a ton, so I liked this book. It just was super hard to read and understand all the aspects of his life by jumping around from page to page. The third book that I read in the month of February was Breakout by Kate Messner. This book takes place kind of near my hometown. It's based off an event that actually happened near me not too long ago. It happened around 2017, where 2 convicts escaped a high maximum security prison near us, and there was a manhunt for them. So this book is actually taken through the perspectives of 3 teenage girls. There's Nora, Lizzie, and LED. And Nora is a budding journalist, and so she comes up with this idea for a time capsule project that they have to do for school, that they're going to write articles and kind of like this newspaper about the events that are happening with the escaped convicts. Nora's dad is also the superintendent of the prison, so there's a lot of pressure on his family and on her to kind of maintain this we didn't do anything wrong personality and lifestyle. Lizzie is a comedian who has like a mathematic brain, and she really doesn't really like writing all that much, but she kind of does whatever Nora says. So she starts writing this stuff, but she starts writing parodies of what's happening and kind of does a funny twist on it. However, midway through the book, a big twist happens with Lizzie that you are not expecting at all. It threw me off like crazy, and it made me fall in love with the book even more. But yeah, and it makes her kind of look at life in a more serious manner instead of just a joking way. And then the third character is LED, who is a girl who just moved to Wolf Creek, where this book takes place, from New York City, because her brother is in the prison in Wolf Creek, and she's not allowed to go see her brother while the convicts have escaped, and she is really worried about him and wondering if he knew anything about the escape or anything has been really happening to him since these criminals escaped. It is a very interesting book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I thought that the perspectives of the 3 different characters was amazing, but it was also amazing because there is so much touching on criminal like profiling and racial profiling, and how when you grow up in a small town, those are things that you just do, and it's kind of reaching out for people to try to change their mindset about certain ethnic groups, certain people, certain lifestyles people may live. And I absolutely loved this book. I loved the take on it, and I thought that the fact that I knew of a situation that happened that this book was based around and how crazy of a time that was in my area and like the areas surrounding me was amazing. I really appreciated this writing. I loved that it was mixed media format, and I don't know, it just kind of blew me away. It's really one of those books that I suggest everybody pick up and read because it has so many great morals, but it also has the innocence of it being a middle grade novel. I think Kate Messner did a really good job of kind of getting that childish vibe to the book during a very serious time. So this was a 5 out of 5 star for me, for sure. The next book that I read in the month of February was The Safekeeper's Secret by Sharon Shin. This book is about a mother named Damiana who gives birth to one baby and ends up adopting another baby on the night of her child's birth. She ends up raising them as siblings. One is named Reed and the other is Fiona. Fiona is very, very reserved and kept to herself, and she wants to become what her mother is, which is the town safekeeper, who is somebody who is kind of the confidant of the town. People tell them their secrets and tell them things about themselves that are very personal and very intense, and she has to keep them a secret no matter what. However, a truth teller comes along who is somebody who can never lie and never tell falsehoods, and tells Fiona that she is not destined to be a safekeeper. Meanwhile, her brother Reed is very outgoing, very hyper, can't decide what he wants to do, never wants to settle down, and he truly believes that he is the son of the king. When Damiana reaches a certain point in her life, she does tell a secret to Fiona, and Fiona must hang on to that and not tell Reed, and they kind of end up going their own separate ways in life to deal with the secrets that have been passed down to them. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I thought it was very interesting. I did use this book as my prompt for started but never finished, because I started reading the second book of the series but never finished reading that book because I didn't understand what was happening in the world, because I had never read the first book of the series, which was really dumb of me. I don't know why I did that, but I just don't think I knew that there was a first book. Now that I've read this book, it makes a ton more sense, so now I can read the second book more confidently. I thought it was a pretty good book. I really liked the world that it took place in, but some of the writing was a little like dull and things didn't really get exciting till like midway through, but overall I thought it was pretty good. I think there was a lot of world building in here, which I know a lot of people like, but I'm somebody who likes to just jump into the action of books, so world building's not like super my thing, but I thought the world in here was pretty cool, even though it was kind of a slow read. I also forgot to say that Breakout, the TBR prompt for this, was a 5-star prediction, and it absolutely led up to that, so I just forgot to say that before. The next book that I read in February was Okay for Now by Gary D. Schmidt. This is a companion novel to The Wednesday Wars, also by Gary D. Schmidt. This is about Doug, who is thrown for a loop when his family has to up and move because his abusive father loses his temper at work and ends up losing his job. They move to upstate New York, away from the city where he has grown up his whole life, and the only thing that really gives him comfort is he has a signed jacket by Joe Pepitone. I'm probably butchering that name. Joe Pepitone, a New York Yankees player from back in the 1960s when this book takes place. It takes place in 1968, so there is a lot of touching on the Vietnam War, which is where Doug's oldest brother currently is. He is definitely misunderstood in his family. His middle brother is super mean to him all the time, and so he ends up escaping to the library and ends up getting an afternoon job as well on Saturdays, where he ends up delivering groceries. However, people in the town aren't really sure about him because his brother has caused so much mischief in the town since arriving there, and people know that his dad is not the most upstanding gentleman in the world. So he does kind of have a hard time living in his family's shadow, but he discovers that he has a real talent for drawing, and he kind of befriends this librarian and a girl who lives close by, and they encourage him to continue on with his drawing and to accept the fact that he is not related, that he is not his family. Like, he needs to learn to be his own person and not live in the shadow of his family. This book was really good. I used this as the TBR prompt for In Memory of My Dad, mainly because it had a lot to do with the New York Yankees, and it took place in 1968, which was when my dad would have been 16, and the main character in here, I believe, is like 12 or 13. So it was pretty close in age to when my dad would have been. that age back then. I thought it was a really interesting book. I laughed and I cried, and it was just a roller coaster of emotions. Like, I literally was cracking up out loud and then 3 pages later sobbing hysterically. It was rough, man. It was rough. I thought that the writing style was really interesting. It definitely wrote like a teenage boy would have written it. And I love all Gary D. Schmidt's book. However, I did like Wednesday Wars just a little bit better, and obviously Orbiting Jupiter is my by far favorite book beyond Harry Potter. Like, Orbiting Jupiter is my top book next to that, which is also by Gary D. Schmidt. So in comparison to those 2 books, this was only a 4 out of 5 star, but that is still a really good rating, and I'm still really happy with this read. And it was a quick read too. I got through it, I believe, in 3 days. Yeah, I got through it in 3 days, and it's a pretty thick book, so... And that was like not reading it consistently either. I just could not put it down. There was a point when I was up until 5 in the morning reading it because I was just so addicted to it. The next book that I read in the month of February was Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I did end up listening to this book on audiobook just because it is such a thick book, and by the time I got to it, I was kind of running out of time for the month, so I needed something I could listen to fast. And I actually don't read faster than I listen to audiobooks. I'm actually a very slow reader, so when I do audiobooks, I crank it up to between 2 and 2.5 for listening, and I can get through it so much faster than if I tried to read it by myself. I did use this for the random letter generator S prompt. And if you guys don't know what this book is about, like, pretty much you're probably living under a rock because I think everybody knows what this book is about. However, if you don't know what this book is about, it is about Citra and Rowan, and they are chosen to be scythe apprentices in a world where man has conquered death. So there is no more, like, fatal illnesses, no more like sudden accidents, anything like that. The only way you can die is if you are gleaned by a scythe. Scythes choose their victims based on their own choosing, pretty much. So the apprentice that they are chosen by is a very upstanding guy. He usually chooses people who are sort of deserving of death. Not that really anyone is deserving of death, but people who, if it was back to the mortal days, probably would have died, like a teenager who is drinking and driving a lot, or somebody who is really, really old. So this also, they have like turning of the century, or turning of the corners, I think it's called, where you can reset your age. So people can like be 24 for the rest of their lives if they really wanted to, which is crazy to me. So basically, Citra and Rowan are chosen to become scythe apprentices, where they must learn how to glean people and choose who gets to die and who doesn't, and use that moral compass within them to make those really hard decisions. But they are suddenly thrown for a giant loop when they decide that one scythe cannot have 2 apprentices, and some stuff goes down. So I don't want to give too much away because this is a really like shocking, surprising book. I did only give it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a little bit more disappointing than what people had let it up to be. I had been like on the edge of my seat for this book, and it just really didn't do much for me. But I did still enjoy it. I just feel like now that I know the world and know the characters, I will probably like the rest of the series better. I think this was just, again, a lot of world building, and like I said, that's not my most favorite thing to read, is when stuff is mostly world building. So, but it was still pretty good. 4 out of 5 stars. All right, guys, we're here. We're at the book I DNF'd. I DNF'd How Harry Cast a Spell by John Granger. So I got through about 25 pages of this book, and I just couldn't do it anymore. This book is basically a Christian look on Harry Potter books in a positive way. So not like somebody who is bashing Harry Potter books for them being like demonic or whatever. Basically, what happens in this book is he takes a look at the Harry Potter books and compares it to the Bible and how it is connected to the Bible and yada, yada, yada. I think that overall, from the 25 pages that I read, there wasn't a huge understanding of how J.K. Rowling actually wrote. Like, it was more of his opinion, and it was like a giant opinionated thesis that I was reading. I have studied J.K. Rowling a lot. I have watched movies about her. I've read books about her. I've done a lot of research about her because I love her, and aspire to be her one day. I really, really, really love her writing, and I just think that the guy who wrote this book, John Granger, just really wanted it to fit into this Christian mold to make it acceptable for him to read, and I'm just not about that. I think if you want to read something, just read it. It doesn't have to fit into any form of mold, and he also talks about how it is a very clear line between good and evil in the Harry Potter books, and that is not true at all. If you guys have read the Harry Potter books, you know, like, one of the most overall morals of the book is that it's not what you're born as, it's what you choose to be. And this kind of writes it out as, like, if you're a Slytherin, you're bad. If you're a Gryffindor, you're good. You have no choices. That's who you are. So I really couldn't get past that aspect of this book because it is not what Harry Potter is about at all, and it just really disappointed me. I also think that if you're going to label it a Christian book, which he did, you have to be cautious of what you say, and he was definitely stepping on a lot of toes in both aspects of the people who are for reading Harry Potter and the people who are not for reading Harry Potter, because he didn't research either side very well. I know both sides of the argument very well because I know a lot of people in my life are very anti-Harry Potter for the religious reasons that a lot of people stand on, and I am very for Harry Potter, so I know that there are two opposing sides. I really do know the opinions of both opposing sides, and I feel like either side that reads this could be offended by it. So, just was not my cup of tea. So, because I wanted to fit in my last prompt, but I physically could not get through that book, I needed another Christian book to fit my prompts, and I chose Scoot Over and Make Some Room by Heather Avis. So this replaced How Harry Cast a Spell as the Christian prompt. If you do not know who this is the kind of social media person for the Lucky Few page on Instagram and YouTube and all the social medias and whatever. She's got a lot of social media, but Heather Avis is a mom who has adopted 3 children, 1 child who is Black and 2 children who have Down syndrome. Her and her husband had a really hard time with infertility for a long time, and her first book, which is called The Lucky Few, touches on those struggles that she had. However, this book talks about making room for people of different abilities, different ethnicities, different cultures, different everything in your life. And I enjoyed this book a little bit. There were things that I really liked. I loved the stories that she told about her children who have Down syndrome because my nephew has Down syndrome, and some of the things she wrote about, I'm like, oh my gosh, he would so do that. She goes into a whole story about how her daughter just randomly pulled down her pants at the park one day and didn't know why. She was just like, I don't know, I just did. And like, my nephew would do that. 100% my nephew would do that. However, there are still things about this book. Heather Avis is a Christian woman, which is why it fits into the Christian category. She talks a lot about Jesus and acceptance, and how when you scoot over and make some room, it's not just for people who believe the same things as you, but scoot over and make some room for everyone. However, what she left out in this book was a little offensive to me. She left out the LGBT community. I know a lot of people who are Christian believe that we shouldn't scooch over and make room for the LGBT community. However, her whole book is based on making acceptance for everyone, no matter who they are, and she just kind of left out a huge culture. She talked about everything else but the LGBT community, and that really kind of offended me, because I think if you're going to say that you have to accept everybody, you have to accept everybody, and it's not a pick and choose situation. I don't know Heather Avis personally. I don't know where she stands on the topic. However, that is what I got from the book. I also was not a super big fan of the parenting aspects of this book because I'm not a parent. However, I did love the stories of her children because it's something that I can relate to even as just an aunt. And I love how she kind of connects her daily life in these funny ways with scenarios that involve talking about pee and underwear and just ridiculous things that, as somebody with small children, I'm sure is something you talk about on a daily basis. I did only give this book 2 out of 5 stars just because I don't know if there was a misunderstanding about the LGBT community or if it's just not something she supports, but either way, I just gave it 2 stars for that, and also because I couldn't really get behind the parenting aspects of the book, just because it's not something that super interests me. However, it was a much better choice than How Harry Cast a Spell because I could not read through that book. But there you have it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of February. I had some really good reads and some meh reads. But I can't believe that I DNF'd a book, guys. I don't know if that's going to become a thing. Like, am I going to start DNFing books every month? I don't know. But I just physically could not get through that book. It was just against everything that I believe in both sides of my life, where I am an avid Harry Potter person, an avid Christian, and it was like trying to fit like a square into a circle, and he was not making sense of it. And I'm not saying that it was wrong. Like, definitely don't think you should not read Harry Potter just because you're a Christian. I think that's ridiculous. You should read Harry Potter because it's amazing. I don't think you need to make a million excuses as to why it's okay, though. I think you should just read it, because I think once you read it, you realize, wow, there's not anything really bad in this. Anywho, so yeah, that is kind of my little preaching about the books that I read this month, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you stay tuned for more videos coming soon. Bye!